Eddie Griffin has been in the comedy game for decades, making people laugh while navigating one of the toughest industries in entertainment. But lately, he's been doing something different. He's been speaking up about Tyler Perry, and what he's saying is making a lot of people stop and pay attention. After years of staying relatively quiet, Eddie is finally sharing his side of the story, and the timing couldn't be more interesting. Tyler Perry is currently facing a massive $260 million lawsuit from a male actor, and suddenly, all those warnings Eddie dropped years ago are hitting different. So what exactly happened between these two? And why is Eddie talking about it now? Eddie Griffin came up the hard way. Born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1968, he grew up in a neighborhood where survival wasn't guaranteed. His mother, Doris Thomas, worked long hours as a phone company operator, doing everything she could to keep the family afloat. They didn't have much, but Eddie learned early how to turn pain into something useful. By the time he moved to Compton at 15, he'd already developed the skill that would change his life, making people laugh even when things weren't funny. He grew up in a strict Jehovah's Witnesses household, which gave him a unique perspective on the world. That religious upbringing became material for his comedy later on. Eddie wasn't the type to hide from his past or pretend he came from somewhere else. He owned it, and that authenticity is what made him stand out. While other comedians were polishing their acts to appeal to everyone, Eddie was raw, honest, and unapologetically himself. By the time Eddie broke into Hollywood, he'd already paid his dues on the comedy circuit. He landed his big break with Malcolm and Eddie in the late 90s, a sitcom that ran for 4 seasons and proved he could carry a show. Then came Undercover Brother in 2002, which became a cult classic. Eddie was building a solid career, not as a megastar necessarily, but as someone who could consistently work and make people laugh. He had his lane, and he was comfortable in it. But Hollywood has never been just about talent. Eddie started noticing things early on, particularly when it came to how black talent was treated compared to white talent. In interviews over the years, he's talked about seeing studios pour millions into unknown white actors while established black performers had to fight for scraps. He watched writers get pushed out of writers' rooms even when they were doing the work. He saw the double standards, and unlike a lot of people in the industry, he wasn't afraid to say it out loud. That's where things get complicated with Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry built an empire. There's no denying that. He created his own studio, produced his own content, and became one of the most powerful figures in entertainment. On paper, that should be something to celebrate. A black man owning his own means of production in an industry that historically locked black people out. That's supposed to be the dream, right? But Eddie Griffin sees it differently. According to Eddie, Tyler Perry hasn't been using that power the way he should. Eddie has called out Tyler multiple times for not putting other black creatives on in meaningful ways. He's talked about how people work on Tyler's shows but don't get proper writing credits even when they're doing the actual writing. Eddie mentioned working on a script with Malcolm Jamal Warner, but when it came time for credits, their names weren't there. That's not just an oversight. That's a pattern. And it's not just about credits. Eddie has suggested that Tyler operates in a way that keeps people dependent on him rather than building them up to succeed on their own. In one interview, Eddie said something that stuck with people. "We put too much pressure on Tyler Perry. He ain't put nobody on." That's a heavy statement coming from someone who's been in the industry as long as Eddie has. It's not coming from jealousy or bitterness. It's coming from someone who's watched the game long enough to know how it's supposed to work. Then there's the lawsuit. A male actor recently filed a $260 million lawsuit against Tyler Perry. And while the details are still coming out, the allegations are serious. The actor claims Tyler engaged in behavior that was inappropriate and abusive. Tyler's team has called it a shakedown, denying everything. But here's the thing. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Diddy just got exposed. Harvey Weinstein got exposed. R. Kelly got exposed. Hollywood's biggest predators have been getting dragged into the light one after another, and people are paying attention in ways they weren't before. Eddie Griffin has been talking about power dynamics in Hollywood for years, and now people are starting to connect the dots. He once said, "They come to you and ask, 'How big of a star do you want?'" He was talking about the price people pay to make it in this industry, the compromises they're forced into, the doors that only open if you're willing to play a certain game. Eddie's been hinting at this stuff for a long time, but when he was saying it, people brushed it off as conspiracy theories or bitter grapes. Now, people are listening. Eddie also talked about how Hollywood uses its power to silence people. He mentioned that he was actually scared of Eddie Griffin at first because he thought Eddie wasn't approachable. But the real fear wasn't about personality. It was about what happens when you step out of line. Eddie said something interesting in one interview. You should have never sued the liquor company. That's what messed you up. They don't care about you tearing up booty holes. But when you sued the liquor company, that's when things changed. He was talking about how the industry will tolerate a lot of bad behavior as long as you don't mess with the money. The second you threaten their profits, that's when the machine turns on you. Tyler Perry has built his empire by being careful, by playing the game in a way that keeps him in the good graces of the studios and the networks. But Eddie's argument is that Tyler didn't use that power to protect other black creatives. He used it to protect himself. And in doing so, he allegedly became part of the same system that's been keeping black people down for decades. Eddie has also talked about how people in the industry stay quiet because they're afraid of losing opportunities. If you speak out against someone as powerful as Tyler Perry, you risk getting blacklisted. You risk losing work. You risk your entire career. So people stay silent, even when they know something's wrong. Eddie's been one of the few willing to risk that, and now that this lawsuit is out there, his warnings don't seem so crazy anymore. The internet has been going wild with this. People are pulling up old clips of Eddie talking about Tyler, old interviews where he hinted at things without saying them outright. And now that there's a lawsuit with serious allegations, those clips feel different. They feel like someone was trying to warn us, and we didn't listen. Eddie Griffin is 57 years old now. He's been in this game long enough to know how it works. He's not trying to tear anyone down for the sake of it. He's trying to tell the truth about an industry that's built on secrets and silence. Whether or not the lawsuit against Tyler Perry goes anywhere remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, Eddie Griffin isn't staying quiet anymore. So what do you think? Has Tyler Perry been using his power the wrong way? Or is Eddie just stirring the pot? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe because this story is far from over.